Right now, as you're watching this, a monster storm is burying parts of America under feet of snow. And the question nobody's asking is, why is this happening the week most families travel? 978 millibars. That's the pressure reading in Quebec tonight. For context, anything below 980 is considered a bomb cyclone, and this beast is sitting right over the travel routes millions of Americans need to use in the next 48 hours. Here's what they're not telling you on the evening news. This isn't just about snow, it's about timing. It's about a perfect collision of Arctic air, moisture, and something meteorologists call cross-polar flow. And in 30 seconds, I'm going to show you the 3 zones where this storm will hit hardest, and why one of them is getting conditions we haven't seen in a decade. But first, let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered why some winters feel like they're punishing us? Like there's a pattern we're missing? Stay with me, because at the 5-minute mark, I'm revealing the single biggest factor that's making this January unlike any we've had in years. The Great Lakes are alive right now, not with life, but with fury. Lake-effect snowbands are firing like artillery across Michigan, New York, Pennsylvania. We're talking about snow rates of 2 to 3 inches per hour. That's not weather. That's a whiteout machine. Erie, Pennsylvania, Buffalo, New York. These names keep coming up in extreme weather, don't they? There's a reason. The geography creates a funnel. Cold air screams across the lakes, picks up moisture, and dumps it like a dump truck on the downwind shores. Tonight, these areas are looking at 2 feet of additional snow by New Year's Day. 2 feet, that's burying cars. That's collapsing roofs on older buildings. Here's a number that should shock you. 60 miles per hour. That's the wind gust over the eastern lakes right now. Combine that with powdery snow, and you get what forecasters call ground blizzards. The snow isn't falling from the sky anymore. It's just being whipped horizontally across highways at highway speeds. Now, I promised you 3 zones. Here they are. Zone 1. The Great Lakes corridor from Marquette, Michigan through Watertown, New York. 6 to 12 inches of lake effect through Wednesday, with localized bands seeing double that. Zone 2. The Central Appalachians. This one's different. It's not about snow here. It's about wind. 70 to 80 mile per hour gusts in the higher elevations of West Virginia and western Maryland. That's hurricane-force winds over a snowpack. Trees are coming down. Power lines are snapping. And Zone 3, this is the one that worries me most. Northern Maine, specifically around Caribou. They're dealing with ice, not snow. Ice. Up to 1/10 of an inch of ice accumulation by tomorrow night. Now, 1/10 of an inch doesn't sound like much, does it? But here's what happens. That ice coats every surface. Power lines sag under the weight. Tree branches become glass sculptures that shatter in the wind. And the roads? They become ice rinks with cars instead of hockey pucks. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you checked on your elderly neighbors? Because in conditions like this, a simple power outage becomes life-threatening for seniors who rely on electric heat. This isn't fear-mongering. This is reality. And there's wisdom in the scripture that tells us to love our neighbors as ourselves. That commandment becomes literal survival advice in storms like this. Here's a twist you didn't see coming. The coldest air isn't even here yet. Tuesday morning, wind chills across Wisconsin and northern Illinois are dropping to 5 to 20 below zero. That's the kind of cold that gives you frostbite in under 10 minutes on exposed skin. But wait, because there's more. By New Year's Day, the real Arctic punch lands. We're talking wind chills of 50 to 60 below zero in northwestern Canada. That air mass is sitting up there like a coiled spring, and it's going to release southward through the first week of January. The storm itself is fascinating from a meteorological standpoint. It's bottoming out to 950, 960 millibars over Hudson Bay by midnight on New Year's Day. Remember, lower numbers mean stronger storms. This is a beast. And it's creating what we call a cross-polar flow. Imagine a fire hose of Arctic air pointing from Alaska through Canada straight down into the eastern United States. That's what's happening. That's what's driving this pattern. Now, visibility. This is where it gets dangerous for travelers. The darker the colors on satellite, the worse the visibility. Right now, Across the upper peninsula of Michigan, northeastern Indiana, northern Ohio, we're seeing visibilities drop below a quarter mile. In some spots, it's near zero. Whiteout conditions. You can't see the hood of your car. If you're on the road in these areas tonight, you're gambling with your life. Let me tell you about temperature swings, because this is where things get biblical. Yesterday, St. Louis was in the mid-70s. At the exact same time, Kansas City was in the low 20s. That's a 50-degree difference across one state. One state. That Arctic front moved through like the parting of the Red Sea, except instead of water, it's splitting warm air from cold. The speed of that temperature drop is what's causing all this chaos. Here's your reward for staying with me this far. At the 5-minute mark, I promised you the single biggest factor making this January different. Here it is. Blocking patterns. Specifically, a Greenland block. When high pressure parks itself near Greenland, it acts like a boulder in a stream. Weather patterns can't flow normally, they get stuck. And what gets stuck over North America? Cold. Arctic cold. Not for days, but for weeks. The models are showing this block persisting through mid-January. What does that mean for you? It means this isn't a one-and-done storm. This is the opening act. Week 1 of January, cold in the east, moderating in the center. Week 2, mid-latitude blocking brings milder air and messy conditions across the middle of the country. But here's the kicker, and don't miss this part because it's the most important thing I'll tell you today. Week 3, January 15th through 22nd, a major Arctic dump. We're talking about a potential historic winter storm somewhere in the heartland. The models are hinting at a storm track from Colorado or Texas up through the Great Lakes. On the northwest side of that system, cold air rushes in and collides with Gulf moisture. That's the recipe for a monster snowstorm. Now, let's talk about what's happening right now in real time. Because while we're focused on snow, there's another story developing. New Year's Eve in New York City. If you're planning to watch the ball drop in Times Square, bundle up. Wind chills will be in the teens. That's cold enough for frostbite if you're standing outside for hours. And here's something they won't tell you in the tourist guides. Even though we're above zero wind chills, prolonged exposure without proper layering can still cause frostbite. Dress in layers, wool or synthetic base layers, insulating mid layers, waterproof outer shell. Your body will thank you. For those celebrating in the middle of the country, you should be okay with dry weather, though it'll be colder up north. But California? That's a different story. Another system is moving into the desert southwest, bringing heavy rainfall back to Los Angeles. Rainfall totals of 1 to 3 inches around Long Beach, Anaheim, San Bernardino. Why does this matter? Because these areas have already seen significant rainfall recently. The soil is saturated. Mudslides are a real threat. If you're in Southern California for New Year's, keep your phone charged and stay alert to flood warnings. Here's a question that's been nagging at me. Why does it feel like winter storms are getting more intense? Is it just our perception? Or is there something deeper happening? I don't have all the answers, but I can tell you this. The jet stream, that river of air high in the atmosphere that steers our weather, has been behaving erratically. When it buckles and waves, we get these extreme patterns. Warm where it should be cold, cold where it should be warm. And the collisions between these air masses? That's where storms are born. Let's dive into the lake effect mechanism, because understanding this helps you understand why some areas get crushed while others 20 miles away see nothing. Cold air flows over the relatively warmer lake water. It picks up heat and moisture. As it hits the downwind shore, it rises, cools, and dumps that moisture as snow. The longer the fetch, the more moisture it picks up. Lake Erie has a shorter fetch than Lake Superior, but it's shallower, so it's actually more efficient at producing lake effect snow. That's why places like Erie and Buffalo are legendary for snow totals. Traverse City, Michigan is looking at 6 to 12 inches through New Year's Day. Marquette, same thing. These are the traditional lake effect snow belts. They're used to snow, but even for them, this is significant. And here's the thing about powdery snow. It's beautiful, but it's deadly. When it's this cold, the snow is dry and light. A 60-mile-per-hour wind gust doesn't just blow it around. It creates a horizontal blizzard. You could be standing in a spot where no snow is falling from the sky, but you can't see 10 feet in front of you because of blowing snow. Now, I want to talk about preparation, because faith without works is dead. As the good book says, if you're in the path of this storm, here's what you need. Water, at least 1 gallon per person per day for 3 days. Non-perishable food, battery-powered or hand-crank radio, flashlights and extra batteries. First aid kit, medications for at least a week. Cash, because ATMs might be down. And most importantly, a way to stay warm if the power goes out. If you have a fireplace, stock up on wood. If you have a generator, make sure it's fueled and you know how to use it safely. Never run a generator indoors or in an attached garage. Carbon monoxide kills silently. Here's a number that should wake you up. The low-pressure system is going to be at 950 millibars by New Year's Day. For comparison, Hurricane Katrina at landfall was 902 millibars. Now, I'm not saying this storm is as powerful as Katrina, different animals entirely. But it shows you the intensity we're dealing with. This is a powerful winter cyclone, and it's going to dominate our weather through the first week of January. Let me paint you a picture of what New Year's Eve looks like across America. In the Northeast, you've got snow showers, moderate pockets of snow around Erie, Pittsburgh, down through Parkersburg and Charleston, West Virginia. Light snow flurries across the New York City area. In the middle of the country, dry and cold in the north, moderating temperatures as you go south. And on the West Coast, rain, heavy rain, with flood threats in Southern California. It's a tale of 3 different weather patterns all happening at once. The counterclockwise flow around the low-pressure system is pinwheeling energy across southern Canada and the northeastern United States. Think of it like a giant Catherine wheel firework, spinning and throwing off sparks. Except these sparks are snow bands and wind gusts. The system is so strong that its influence extends over 1,000 miles from its center. Now, here's something fascinating. The airflow dynamics around a low-pressure system in the northern hemisphere always move counterclockwise. Always. It's because of the Coriolis effect, which is caused by Earth's rotation. So when you see these weather maps with the swirl, that's not just artistic license, that's actual physics. And that counterclockwise flow is what's dragging Arctic air down from Canada and into the United States. I want to address something that's been on a lot of people's minds. Is climate change making these storms worse? Here's what I can tell you without getting political. The atmosphere holds 7% more moisture for every degree Celsius of warming. More moisture means more fuel for storms. But winter storms are complicated. They need cold air, and there's still plenty of that around. What we're seeing is more variability. The jet stream is wavier. When it's wavy, you get bigger temperature contrasts. Bigger contrasts mean stronger storms. So are storms getting more intense? The data suggests yes, in some ways, but each storm is unique, and this one is being driven by a very specific pattern that would happen regardless of any long-term trends. Let's talk about January beyond this immediate storm, because this is where things get really interesting. Week 1, we've got the Greenland block keeping cold air locked in the east. Week 2, things moderate a bit with mid-latitude blocking. The snowpack in Canada will start to melt. Whatever snow we've got in the central U.S. will diminish. This is the calm between storms. Use this time to restock, recharge, and prepare, because week 3 is when the hammer drops. January 15th through 22nd. Mark those dates. The models are showing a significant pattern change, a big dump of Arctic air. And remember what I said about the collision of air masses? This is where it happens. Cold air rushing south, Gulf moisture pushing north. When those two meet, you get snow, potentially a lot of snow. The storm track models are suggesting somewhere from Colorado or Texas northward through Indiana and Michigan. On the northwest side of that low-pressure system, that's where the heavy snow falls. We could be looking at a major winter storm that affects tens of millions of people. Here's a twist. The last week of January, the storm track shifts south. When cold air rushes in behind a storm, it suppresses the track. That means the southern states get into the game. Tennessee, the Carolinas, maybe even Georgia and Alabama. These areas don't see snow often, but when they do, it's chaos. They don't have the plows, the salt, the experience. An inch of snow in Atlanta causes more problems than a foot in Buffalo. So if you're in the South, don't tune out. Your time might be coming in late January. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever noticed how weather patterns seem to have a rhythm? 7 to 10 day cycles, monthly cycles, even yearly cycles. There's order in the chaos. Some call it meteorology. Some see the hand of providence. The heavens declare the glory of God, the scripture says. And when you watch these massive systems move across the continent, when you see the precision of atmospheric dynamics, it's hard not to wonder if there's a designer behind it all. The snow totals for January, when you add it all up, are going to be impressive. The first couple of weeks might be mild in spots, keeping some systems as rain. But as we move into mid and late month, that snow line shifts south. Areas that don't normally see significant snow might get in on the action. The models are hinting at Texas snow, Oklahoma snow, Arkansas snow, Carolina snow. Now, these are just suggestions at this point. We're talking about forecasts 3 to 4 weeks out. Things will change. But the overall pattern is clear, active, snowy, cold. Here's something you need to understand about long-range forecasting. We can't tell you exactly where it's going to snow 3 weeks from now, but we can identify patterns. We can see when the jet stream is going to buckle. We can track blocking patterns. We can watch ocean temperatures and snow cover and 100 other variables. And when you put all that together, you get a sense of the overall flavor of the month. And January's flavor is cold and snowy, especially in the second half. Let me tell you about wind chill, because this is something people underestimate. Wind chill is not just a number. It's a measure of how fast your body loses heat. At 0 degrees with no wind, you can survive outside for a while if you're dressed properly. At 0 degrees with a 30-mile-per-hour wind, that wind chill is -26. At that temperature, frostbite can occur on exposed skin in under 30 minutes. At 50 below wind chill, which we're expecting in parts of Canada, frostbite happens in under 10 minutes. This is not hypothetical. This is real danger. If you have to be outside in these conditions, cover every inch of skin, wear a balaclava or wrap a scarf around your face. Wear goggles if you have them. The cold doesn't just hurt, it damages tissue, and once you get frostbite, that damage can be permanent. I'm telling you this not to scare you, but to prepare you. Knowledge is power, and in extreme weather, knowledge can save your life. Now, here's a question I want you to think about. Why do we build cities in places where extreme weather is common? Buffalo gets buried in snow almost every year. Miami gets hit by hurricanes. Los Angeles has wildfires and mudslides. Why do we stay? Because we're resilient. Because we adapt. Because home is more than just weather. It's community. It's family. It's the place where our roots go down deep. And when storms come, we don't run. We hunker down, we help our neighbors, we endure. That's the human spirit. That's what separates us from the animals that just follow their instincts. Let's talk about travel, because this is the week between Christmas and New Year's. Millions of Americans are on the road or in the air. If you're flying, check your flight status obsessively. Airlines are already canceling flights out of Buffalo, Detroit, Cleveland. If your flight gets canceled, don't wait. Rebook immediately. The longer you wait, the fewer options you have. If you're driving, ask yourself if the trip is truly necessary. I know you want to see family, I know you have plans, but is it worth risking your life? If you must drive, pack a winter survival kit in your car. Blankets, food, water, a shovel, sand or kitty litter for traction, a phone charger, flares. If you get stuck, stay with your vehicle. Run the engine for heat 10 minutes every hour, but make sure your exhaust pipe isn't blocked by snow. Here's a sobering statistic. Every year, dozens of Americans die in winter storms. Some from car accidents, some from heart attacks while shoveling snow, some from carbon monoxide poisoning when they use generators improperly, some from hypothermia when they get stranded. These deaths are preventable. They happen because people underestimate the danger or overestimate their abilities. Don't be a statistic. Use common sense. If something feels dangerous, it probably is. Now, I want to circle back to something I mentioned earlier, the blocking pattern. This Greenland block is going to be the dominant feature of January's weather. When you see high pressure near Greenland, it acts like a traffic jam in the atmosphere. Weather systems can't move west to east like they normally do. They get stuck. And what gets stuck over us? Cold. This pattern is called a negative North Atlantic oscillation, or NAO. When the NAO is negative, eastern North America tends to be colder than normal. And the forecasts are showing this negative NAO persisting for weeks. What does this mean practically? It means pattern changes will be slower. Once the cold locks in, it stays locked in. Once the snow falls, it doesn't melt quickly. And each subsequent storm builds on the previous one. That's how you get extreme snow totals, not from one big storm, but from multiple events over a cold pattern. Buffalo's record snow in 2014 was like that. Not one storm, but several lake effect events over days and days, dumping 6, 7, 8 feet of snow in some neighborhoods. Here's something that's on my mind. Power outages. When you combine heavy snow, ice, and high winds, power lines come down. Transformers blow. Substations fail. And in cold like this, losing power is not just an inconvenience. It's an emergency. If you lose power, how will you heat your home? If you have a gas furnace, it might not work without electricity to run the blower. Fireplaces are great, but most modern homes don't have them. Space heaters require electricity. So, what do? This is where community comes in. Warming centers will open in most cities. Don't be too proud to use them. Freezing to death in your home because you didn't want to ask for help is not noble. It's tragic. Let me share something personal. I've been forecasting weather for years, and the storms that worry me most are the ones that hit during holidays. Not because the storms are stronger, but because people have their guard down. They're traveling, they're distracted, they're trying to juggle family obligations and weather safety, and sometimes safety loses. I'm asking you, just for this week, put safety first. If you miss a holiday gathering because of weather, there will be other gatherings. But if you get hurt or worse in a storm, there's no do-over. The storm we're tracking right now is powerful, but it's predictable. We know where it is. We know where it's going. We know what it's going to do. There are no surprises here. The surprise would be if people ignore the warnings and get caught unprepared. Please don't be that person. Check the forecast every few hours. Conditions are changing rapidly. What was a dusting of snow this morning might be a blizzard by evening. Stay informed. Stay alert, stay alive. Here's a prediction I'm willing to make. By January 15th, we'll be talking about another major storm. I don't know exactly where it'll hit yet. The models aren't consistent enough. But the pattern is there. The ingredients are lining up. Cold air to the north, moisture to the south, a jet stream position to bring them together. When I see these setups, I get a feeling. Call it intuition, call it experience. This month is going to be memorable for winter weather. Not every storm will be huge, but the cumulative effect of multiple events over a cold pattern, that's what creates a historic winter month. Now, let's talk about the spiritual side of this for a moment. Why do storms happen? From a meteorological standpoint, they're just physics. Cold air, warm air, moisture, pressure, gradients. But there's another way to look at it. Storms test us. They reveal character. In the aftermath of a storm, you see the best and worst of humanity. You see neighbors helping neighbors dig out. You see strangers pulling people from snowbanks. You see communities coming together. But you also see price gouging, looting, selfishness. What will you be? When the storm hits, who will you be? The one who helps or the one who hides? Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. In a winter storm, that might mean checking on an elderly neighbor. It might mean letting a stranded stranger use your phone. Small acts of kindness become life-saving in extreme weather. Let me give you some specific timing for the next 72 hours. Tonight, Monday, December 29th, heavy lake effect snow continues across Michigan, New York, Pennsylvania, blizzard conditions in spots. Wind gusts to 60 miles per hour. Tomorrow, Tuesday, December 30th, cold air rushes in behind the system. Wind chills 5 to 20 below in Wisconsin and northern Illinois. Lake effect snow bands persist. By Wednesday, New Year's Eve, another reinforcing shot of lake effect snow, strong winds in southeastern Canada. And then on New Year's Day, the low bottoms out over Hudson Bay, continuing the cold and snow into the first weekend of January. What you need to know is this. If you're in the Great Lakes or Northeast, the next 3 days are going to be challenging. Travel will be dangerous. Power outages are possible. Cold will be life-threatening if you're not prepared. This is not hype. This is reality. The storm is here. It's now. And it's not going away quickly. Here's something they don't tell you in short-term forecasts. The psychological toll of winter storms. When you're stuck inside for days, when it's too dangerous to go out, when the sun doesn't shine, it affects your mood. Seasonal affective disorder is real. The darkness and isolation of winter can trigger depression in people who never experienced it before. If you feel this, you're not alone. Reach out, call a friend, talk to your pastor. Don't suffer in silence. And if you know someone who lives alone, especially seniors, check on them. A 5-minute phone call could literally save a life. Now, I promised you earlier that I'd reveal something at a specific time. Here it is. The single most important thing you can do to stay safe in winter weather is to have a plan. Not just a vague idea, but an actual written plan. Where will you go if you lose power? Who will you contact? What supplies do you have? When was the last time you checked your emergency kit? Most people don't have a plan. They figure they'll deal with it when it happens. But in a crisis, stress and fear shut down rational thinking. You default to what you've practiced. If you haven't practiced, you panic. So make a plan. Tonight, before you go to bed, sit down with your family and talk through scenarios. It takes 30 minutes, and it could save your life. Let's talk about what happens after this immediate storm passes. Early January, we get a brief moderating trend. Temperatures climb a bit, some of the snowpack melts, roads clear, life returns to normal. Don't let your guard down. This is just the intermission. The main act comes in mid-January. That's when the pattern amplifies. That's when we could see a truly historic storm. I can't tell you exactly where yet, but I can tell you to stay prepared. Don't put away your winter gear just because we get a mild spell. Keep your emergency supplies stocked. Keep your gas tank above half full. Keep your phone charged. Here's a question that's been asked a lot lately. Are these patterns related to what's happening in the oceans? The El Niño Southern Oscillation, or ENSO, is neutral right now. We're not in an El Niño or La Niña. That means the Pacific isn't driving our weather as strongly as it sometimes does. Instead, we're being driven by Arctic oscillations and Atlantic patterns. The cold air source is the Arctic and northern Canada, not the Pacific. That's why Alaska is actually warmer than normal right now, while we're freezing in the lower 48. The air that would normally sit over Alaska has been displaced south. It's over us instead. Let me tell you about the Appalachian wind event because this deserves special attention. 70 to 80 mile per hour gusts in the higher elevations. That's strong enough to down trees, even healthy ones. If you live in the mountains of West Virginia, Western Maryland, Southwestern Pennsylvania, secure anything outside that could blow away. Patio furniture, garbage cans, holiday decorations. A 70 mile per hour gust can turn a lawn chair into a missile. And if you're camping or have a cabin in these areas, consider coming down to lower elevations. Mountain weather in winter is no joke. The wind funnels through valleys and over ridges, amplifying speeds. What's a 40 mile per hour wind at the base of the mountain becomes 70 at the summit? Now, ice. Let's talk about ice in northern Maine. 1/10 of an inch of ice accumulation might not sound like much, but it transforms the landscape. Every tree branch becomes coated, power lines sag. And here's the dangerous part. When the wind picks up, those ice-laden branches break. They fall on power lines, they fall on cars, they fall on houses, and the roads, black ice is invisible. You don't see it until you're sliding. If you have to drive in icing conditions, slow down, way down. Give yourself 3 times the normal stopping distance. And if you start to slide, don't slam the brakes. Ease off the gas, steer in the direction you want to go, and let the car slow naturally. Panic braking on ice makes things worse. Here's a number that tells the story of this storm's power. 950 millibars. That's where the low will bottom out. To give you context, normal sea level pressure is 1,013 millibars. Anything below 980 is considered very strong. At 950, we're talking about an intense cyclone. The pressure gradient, the difference between high pressure to the south and this low pressure to the north, is what creates wind. The tighter the gradient, the stronger the wind. And right now, the gradient is tight, very tight. That's why we're seeing such powerful winds from the Midwest through the Northeast and into Canada. Let me paint a picture of what's happening in the upper atmosphere. The jet stream, that ribbon of fast-moving air about 30,000 feet up, is buckled like a roller coaster. It's diving south over the eastern U.S., bringing cold air with it. Then it arcs back north over the Atlantic. That southward dive, that trough, is what's allowing Arctic air to spill into the lower 48. And the northern extent of that trough, up in Canada, is where our low-pressure system is sitting. The counterclockwise flow around that low is channeling Arctic air directly from the North Pole down through Canada and into the northern tier of states. It's a direct pipeline of cold. Now, what about the people who have to work through this storm? Emergency responders, utility workers, snowplow drivers, hospital staff, these are the unsung heroes of winter weather. While most of us are hunkered down at home, they're out in the worst conditions keeping society functioning. If you see a plow driver, a utility truck, an ambulance, give them space, don't follow too closely. They're doing dangerous work in dangerous conditions. And if you know someone who works these jobs, check in on them. The stress of working through a storm is immense. A word of encouragement goes a long way. Let's talk about snow removal, because this is where people get hurt. Heart attacks while shoveling are one of the leading causes of death during winter storms. Why? Because shoveling is intense cardiovascular exercise. You're lifting heavy weight repeatedly in cold air that makes your blood vessels constrict. If you have any heart risk factors, do not shovel. Hire someone, ask a neighbor, use a snowblower, and if you must shovel, do it slowly. Take breaks, stay hydrated. And if you feel chest pain, shortness of breath, or unusual fatigue, stop immediately and call 911. Pride has killed more men than snow ever has. Here's something I want you to remember. Weather is not the enemy. It's just weather. It's us, unprepared, that creates the tragedy. Every single winter storm death is preventable. Every single one. Either through better preparation, better decision-making, or better community support. When I hear about someone dying in a storm, I don't blame the weather. I ask, what could we have done differently? How could we have helped? What systems failed? Because storms are going to happen. That's nature. But deaths don't have to happen. That's on us. The forecast for the rest of January is coming into focus. Multiple storms, persistent cold, snow from the Great Lakes to the Northeast, with southward expansion as we move through the month. This is shaping up to be an old-fashioned winter, the kind our grandparents talk about, the kind where school gets canceled for a week, the kind where you lose power and have to huddle by the fireplace, the kind that builds character and creates memories. If you're prepared, it can even be beautiful. There's something about a fresh snowfall that cleanses the world. Everything looks clean and new. The noise is muffled. It's peaceful. But that peace requires preparation. Let me ask you one more question before we wrap up. What will you do with this information? Will you take action, or will you hope for the best? Hope is not a strategy. Faith is important, but so is responsibility. God gave you a brain and free will. Use them. Prepare your home. Prepare your family. Prepare your heart. Because winter is here, and it's not asking permission. The most important thing you can do right now is stay informed. Weather can change quickly. What's a light snow band now could intensify. What's rain could change to ice. Check the forecast multiple times a day. Have multiple ways to receive warnings. Your phone, a weather radio, even old-fashioned radio or TV. And have a plan for if your phone dies. Know where the closest warming center is. Know where the closest hospital is. Know your neighbors and let them know you. As we head into New Year's, let's take a moment to reflect. 2025 is ending with a bang, weather-wise. 2026 is starting the same way, but we're still here. We're still standing. We've weathered storms before, literal and metaphorical, and we'll weather this one too, together, because that's what we do. When times get tough, Americans get tougher. We help each other. We persevere. We endure. So here's my challenge to you. Make this New Year's resolution. Be prepared, not just for weather, but for life. Have an emergency kit, have a plan, know your neighbors, build community. Because when the next storm hits, and there will be a next storm, you'll be ready. And maybe you'll be the one helping someone else. Maybe you'll be the light in someone's darkness. Maybe you'll be the reason someone else survives. Stay safe out there, stay warm, check on each other, and keep watching, because this story is far from over. The next 72 hours are critical. Then we have a brief calm, and then mid-January brings the next chapter. I'll be here, tracking every development, bringing you the latest information, because knowledge is power, and in winter weather, it's the difference between life and death. God bless you, and God bless America. We're going to need both to get through this winter.